Hey, what's up? It's Bon. Let's talk about Star Wars. Specifically, let's talk about Star Wars Outlaws. In an article today on IGN by Ryan Dinsdale, they summarized a Edge magazine interview with Julian Garrity. He's the lead on the Star Wars Outlaws game from Ubisoft Massive. This is the same studio who has made Division 1 and 2. Most recently, made a bunch of other games before Ubisoft owned them. And this interview isn't super in depth, but it was in Edge magazine, which this game was the cover game for that. So if you have that magazine or if you read it, you already know some of this. But Julian was asked about the world of Star Wars Outlaws. Specifically, he stated that it's more handcrafted and manageable than some other open world games. The game is going to take place between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. A larger quote here from Julian says, "It's a crude analogy, but the size of one planet might be equivalent to 2 zones in Assassin's Creed Odyssey," said Garrity. "It could be 2 to 3 zones, but it's not this sort of epic, quote, the whole world, the whole of England recreated approach." So he's obviously talking about Valhalla. What's interesting about this is Ubisoft catches a lot of crap for, especially with Odyssey and Valhalla, with these worlds just being so big and not the most densely packed when it comes to content and things like that. That sometimes Ubisoft games almost seem big for the sake of being big when it comes to their world. Something that he's talking about here. I've met Julian. I've heard him talk a lot. And this quote is just funny to me because in my head, I can hear his voice. He has a very unique way of speaking. And this was encouraging to me. If you play Jedi Survivor, you'll know that we had multiple worlds that were decent sized, but not too big. When Julian talks about the size of the Star Wars Outlaws worlds being, 2 or 3 parts of like an Odyssey map, this article points out that is a little misleading because there's like Attica and Odyssey is gigantic. So if it's 2 of those, it's going to be probably too big. But I suspect that he was more talking about like the average size of one of the zones in Odyssey and probably talking about 2 or 3 of those. That's a good thing to me. One thing I liked about Survivor is nothing seemed too big or too silly or too ridiculous. It all felt good. Like nothing was so far away. It was a pain in the butt, but it was big enough that they were able to hide fun little surprises and things to discover and things like that. Now, another part of this talked about, and Julian talked about, how they aren't using procedural generation for their worlds. It's all handcrafted. I know Ubisoft has a reputation, again, for having these big kind of empty worlds, but people need to take some note that this is Ubisoft Massive. This isn't the Assassin's Creed devs. This isn't the Far Cry devs. Ubisoft Massive, in my opinion, is the best studio that Ubisoft has. Even if you didn't like the Division 1 and 2, if you break down the technical side of what Ubisoft Massive did with Division 1 and 2 when it comes to environmental design, gameplay feel, just a lot of stuff. I mean, they are weak in some areas too, but a lot of the things that I expect to carry over to this game, they're really, really good at. And I think what we're going to see on top of that is them finally get to flex their like narrative ability and their kind of ability to make really pretty games. And, them coming out and saying like, hey, this isn't a procedurally generated thing. Like, this game is handcrafted. It's rumored that there's 4 to 5 worlds and that they're all going to have very purposeful design and they're going to feel good to explore and be a part of. That just makes me just so excited. So I know we still don't have a date on this game. I'm expecting it probably mid next year. I think 2024 is as good as 23 has been and is going to be through the rest of the year. 24 is low key setting up to be pretty darn good too. And I think this is going to be a big part of that. You know, we'll have to wait and see. So let me know what you think about what Julian said in this interview. I'm curious to how other people took it, especially fellow Division fans who have heard Garrity talk before. And, let me know down in the comments. If you want more Star Wars Outlaws info, if you want to talk about BioWare or The Division or any other fun gaming stuff, please subscribe to the channel. Like this video if you did. You can catch me all over the internet as Bond Diesel, Twitch, Twitter, Threads, if that survives. And you can also catch my weekly gaming podcast, The Echo Cast, on all podcast platforms and right here on this YouTube channel. That's all I have for this one. So until next time.